Hello, and welcome to Sunflower Philosophy Tarot. This is Juliana, and today's reading was intended to be an opportunity for your spirit guides or whomever you connect with to brag about you. I thought that would be fun, and I did something a little different this time because I created some character cards that just have characters from like stories and movies and books and stuff that I really connect with. And then I just kind of mixed them up and shuffled them up and saw which ones came out for each group. And my plan is just to use them as a way to get more information that might be useful to you, because I don't know about you guys, but I find using stories and characters and how I connect with those stories and characters to be useful and valuable tools to help me understand myself better and understand life better. I see all different kinds of stories as incorporating a lot of valuable information if you're willing to look for it. And so I knew that that would be a really great tool for me to include in my readings, and I wanted to share that with you guys and see if that resonates with other people too. So you do not have to be familiar with any of these characters or stories. I will explain in each group what elements of each character or story is coming up as important to the specific reading and group that I'm talking about. And so you don't have to be familiar with them. When you're selecting a group, you can always select based on like what your favorite character is, as might be your inclination. Or if you're familiar with a certain story and not the others, you might gravitate towards that. But if you select that group and you're not 100% sure it's really resonating with you, you can just feel free to pick another one, and just rest assured I will talk about why this specific character is coming up for this specific group. And if you find a story that you're interested in that you had never engaged with before, it also might be worth checking out because you might learn something there that you weren't expecting. So, use your intuition as always when deciding what is for you and what's not for you, and have fun with it, as was my intention. So without further ado, let me introduce the groups. So we have group 1 with Edward Elric from Fullmetal Alchemist, and the version of the story that I'm most familiar with is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is the animated version of the original manga story. So next in group 2, we have Arwen from Lord of the Rings, and I'm most familiar with the films, although I believe I read the books like a long time ago, but just so you know what my reference point is, that's where I'm mostly coming from with her. And then for group 3, we have Declan Lynch from The Raven Cycle and the Dreamer Trilogy, both by Maggie Stiefvater. He's more featured in the Dreamer Trilogy. And that is a book series that I'm quite fond of. So you can, as I said, use your intuition, select your pile. I'll put the timestamps in the description box and also the pinned comment. So you can go there, skip to your pile, and I hope you enjoy and just have a good time with this reading. So I will see you there. Hi, Group 1. If you chose Edward Elric, then you're in the right place. And this is your reading, which is just an opportunity for your spirit guides to brag about you to me. And through me, you can get some well-deserved, well-needed praise, and hopefully a confidence boost as well. I was very excited when I thought of this topic because I feel like your spirit guides are very excited about it and really want to talk to you and to me about what makes you great. So we are going to, we're going to just get right into it. So with these character cards, my intention with them is to just use them to highlight potentially some aspects of your personality or your journey or your life that your spirit guides want to talk about. So with Edward Elric, I'm sure many of you who selected this pile are familiar with this character in the story, but also I'm sure many of you are not. So I'm just going to briefly explain Edward. So he is from the manga and also anime Fullmetal Alchemist. And I'm mostly going to be referencing Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood because that's the version of the story I'm most familiar with. but there is an original anime from 2003 that diverges from the manga subplot, the manga plot. So like that one's a little bit different, but some of the characterization is similar, but some of the story is quite different. So I'm less familiar with that one. So I'm mostly talking about the original manga and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood storyline and characterization of Ed. So Ed comes from a world where alchemy is like the main form of science in his country, and he and his brother Alphonse learn from a young age how to basically use alchemy. And alchemy is, just as it is known in like real life alchemy, it's like about transmutation. It's about changing something from one thing to another thing. And so some of you here might be interested in like actual alchemy. I don't know, like in real life, you might have studied it in real life. I would say I've maybe read some things here and there, but I am not as familiar with like all the ins and outs of alchemy in like real life and how it's been applied and like what it actually means. Although I do know that it is something that is related a lot to the spiritual field. So some of you might be very spiritual and might be on a spiritual journey. I do feel for others of you, because in this world, Ed is a character who, from a young age, endures a lot of suffering, and he is forced to take on quite a lot of responsibility from a young age as well. And he learns to see a darker side of life and of humanity very early on, and carries with him throughout his story a lot of the weight of responsibility, a feeling of guilt for some of the things that happened in his childhood. And he's a character who's he's not going to stand for any kind of false prophets. He's not ready to necessarily believe in any certain type of God or this or that. I believe in the original version, although it might have been not so apparent in like the English dub, but I believe in the original Japanese he was definitely openly like atheistic. He's a very like philosophically minded person and very scientifically minded. Considering that alchemy, while it is kind of like, it kind of comes across as like a magic system in this world, it's like the science of the world, if that makes sense. And while he's had some directly, like I would say spiritual experiences, as he from a young age goes through a portal and meets an embodiment of what is known as the truth and gets to see like almost like what I would consider like a third eye opening experience, where like he sees like all of the universe at once, and it's like very overwhelming experience. He doesn't necessarily remember everything from that experience, because who would be able to comprehend that much information in the human brain? But it does give him some special abilities to do things that other people can't. And yet he's also very like, he doesn't believe in God, and he doesn't trust false prophets. So he's someone who has a sense of skepticism in him, especially when it comes to like people who are using other people's pain and suffering for personal gain. So for a lot of you, you might resonate with some of that. You might resonate with maybe having taken on a lot of responsibility or a lot of emotional guilt or weight at a young age. Some of you might relate to being skeptical, being hesitant when it comes to engaging with any sort of spiritual or religious practice, while at the same time some of you might have some very spiritual experiences as well. Others of you might be, although you're here at a tarot reading, you might be more like science and math minded kind of person, more materially focused, and have less experience with the spiritual. You might have more skepticism towards that. Regardless, I think for all of you, what your spirit guides already want to highlight for me is that you guys are so smart. So no matter like what your background is, whether you relate to the character of Ed directly or not, you're very intelligent. And whether you recognize that in yourself or not, your spirit guides want me to tell you like you're so smart, and they recognize that and they see that. And I think that whatever your path has been so far, whether you are someone who's engaged more with more spiritual concepts, and whether that's something you've dived into, or if it's something that you're a bit more skeptical of or held back from, they I think they want to emphasize that wherever you're at with that right now in your life is exactly where you're meant to be. So you're doing fine with that. And if there are any changes that are meant to happen in your perspective along your path, that will happen in its own time. But they're really commending you for thus far whatever you've managed to accomplish, achieve, even maybe for some of you avoid. I'm hearing like avoid. If you've avoided some pitfalls or things like that in your life, I think that you've done a great job with that. And we'll talk a little bit more about Ed as we go, because I feel like his characterization is going to come up a lot in your reading, but I want to get some more information. I want to get some more, just see what else your spirit guides want to say to you and want to brag about. But yeah, like I said, very smart. Like Ed is basically like a prodigy in his field of alchemy. So, and he kind of was, even before he went and he had that experience where he saw the truth, he was already quite skilled at alchemy. I'm trying not to like say too much about the story in case anyone out there hasn't engaged with it and you want to after this, because it's a really cool story. Another thing about Ed is that he's quite nuanced in his character. I feel like although he's not like a bad person by any means, at least I wouldn't describe him as such, he has done things in his life that he considers to be not super great. And so, like I said, he carries a lot of guilt with him. So some of you might have struggled with a guilt complex, or you may still be struggling with that. But he's also a character who literally and metaphorically, or literally and spiritually and emotionally, experiences a lot of growth throughout his story. So I think your spirit guides also want to highlight how much you have grown, and they're really proud of you for that. And they want me to know that, and they want you to know that. So let's, yeah. All right, so let's see, we have the World here, okay. We have the Hermit. We have the Two of Strength, which is the Two of Wands. And we have the King of Cups, King of Wisdom, King of Cups, which was in reverse, but I don't necessarily take these cards in reverse, so I'll put it upright, but if I notice anything about that, I'll say it. Okay, so. Well, as soon as I saw the World card, first of all, like, they're toasting to you, because something in your life, you've gone through some kind of cycle that has really has ended, and it's come to a conclusion that I think, however you see it, your spirit guides are very happy with how you've closed out the cycle in your life. Ooh, okay. So we're talking about alchemy, right? And alchemy is about like transmutation, and you can think of that in a very like spiritual sort of context, in the sense that like, depending on like what you feel, how you feel about like the soul and this and that, it's like okay, so I've heard some people call it like a soul transition, where like you level up within your lifetime, and so like you go through such a big shift in like, it can be externally but also internally, and you're kind of a different person after, and it's kind of like to my understanding, like what alchemy kind of really is about is like changing your internal world, which in turn changes your external world. And so I feel like a lot of you have gone through that kind of big internal shift. And for most of you, I feel like you will recognize exactly when and how that happened, because it would be like a really big like ending and beginning. And it doesn't have to be so literal, but it can be something as much as profound as like, I'll give an example from my own life. Going from living in a state of like high anxiety all the time and being very stuck in that cycle and feeling very trapped internally, to breaking free from that and learning to live a life that is so much less full of anxiety, and like something that sounds simple, but like the internal process of that was very dramatic for me, and very it's like shocking almost to go through life in one way and then realize and experience it in a completely different way, and compare those two experiences and be like, wow, I can't believe I was living this way for so long, and I can't believe it's actually possible to live in a completely different way with a completely different perspective. So I feel like a lot of you have gone through that kind of big old shift, and your spirit guides are like, look at them go, look at them go. They want to, like, toast you for that. It's like, great, you did exactly what you're supposed to do. Fantastic, we're so proud of you. So yeah, there's that for sure. And then with the Hermit card too, I do feel like it was a very internal journey, and for some of you it might have been something that you felt like you did very alone. Now, of course, if you're connecting with your spirit guides, or you feel connected to that concept, you're never alone. I mean, you're never alone in general, like you're never alone, but you might feel very alone, and it might have been something that you had to do yourself. You might have felt like you had to do it all by yourself, and you really found your own way through whatever darkness that you've traversed. And what's interesting is, so like the character of Ed, for example, it's like Ed and Al both work together, and they both, they're brothers, and they're both kind of bearing responsibility for this thing in their past that they did that really impacted their lives in a way that they'd probably consider overtly a negative way, but it kind of did kickstart their path, and in a sense, they end up being able to do a lot of good and have a lot of impact on their journey to sort of right their wrongs as they see it. But Ed, being the older brother, he takes a lot of that responsibility onto himself, and he doesn't always share the burden, and he doesn't always he can kind of come across as an isolated character, even amidst a group of people who care for him and who are working with him actively. And that is the thing about Full Metal Alchemist, is that it's kind of about like starting this journey and taking a lot of responsibility onto yourself, and then expanding out to include the people around you and open up more to people in your life who want to help you, are willing to help you, and sharing what you've been through and sharing what you've learned from that with other people to help them and to be of service to them. And I do feel like Ed is a character who, when the time is right, when the situation calls for it, he will be honest and take responsibility for things he's been through and what he's done in his life and what he's learned from that in order to help someone else. And his big thing is about standing on your own 2 feet and taking responsibility for your life. And so he has sort of a very firm, like, what is it, pathos, around like people taking the action that they need to take in their own lives. So you might be someone who like really values when people actually embrace and want to change and grow. So for you might, like Ed, have a bit of a, I don't know, maybe impatience when it comes to, if you perceive that there are people who are maybe dissatisfied with their life but unwilling to change. It's not something that you necessarily respect. You're really here for the people who are about changing their lives and who are interested in actually taking those steps and taking responsibility. It's like you might have no patience for someone who's stuck in a very victim mentality, which is not to say that maybe you have empathy for that. Maybe you've been there and you understand what that's like, but at the same time, you're not here to humor that, and you're not here to stay in that. So I feel for you, you can be very blunt. I think your spirit guides, by the way, are encouraging about this for you. Well, it's not about judging other people's experiences. At the same time, you know what you are about, and you're here to be about that. And you've done that in your own life. So you're here to help other people who are looking to do that in their lives. And you've done a great job of that so far. And I feel like you've done that for yourself, and now you're ready to move into, with this 2 of strength, which is the 2 of wands, you're ready to move into that role in a more expansive way. The Two of Wands often reminds me of the World card in the sense, in the original Rider-Waite-Smith deck, someone is looking at a globe, like holding like a globe in their hand. And so it's like, okay, first of all, the spirit guides are like, with this new cycle that you have entered, you have the world in the palm of your hand. And I think that you either feel that way or you're starting to feel that way. And they're like, yes, 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 like you can do anything. And you're starting to embrace that. And that's super exciting for them and for you. And they're really proud of that. But also you are, they're commending your ability to see the bigger picture, to be able to zoom out and see things for what they truly are, from a different perspective, from a higher perspective. And this is something that you're very good at. Perhaps you've honed this through your, trek through the darkness. This is something that you've developed in yourself, or it's something that maybe you already came in with in this lifetime, but they're very proud of that. They're highlighting that. I think for a lot of you, you have had to work hard for your perspective, and that's been something that's been a big lesson for you, and you've managed to do that. Like I said, you've gone through some kind of metamorphosis in this life. Like you've transformed a lot, and you are possibly at the beginning of almost like it's almost like you have like a new lifetime within your lifetime. Like you didn't have to die to start your next life. You like started your next life in the middle of this life for some of you. So that's where you're at right now. And you've really tapped into that higher perspective. Maybe for some of you with this King of Cups, there might be, since it came out in reverse, even though this deck I don't necessarily always take in reverse, for some of you, maybe your next journey involves like developing your emotional wisdom, your emotional intelligence. Maybe for a lot of you, you've been so focused on the mind or on your learning or physical reality, and now you're moving into the more emotional development, and this is your new life and your new journey. For others of you, I think no matter what, even if you're still developing that, like you're never really done, right? Like even if you've already developed a lot in that area, you might still be developing that. So regardless of where you feel you're at, I think that they're also commending your wisdom and commending your emotional maturity, and perhaps commending your ability to recognize where you might have some weaknesses there, or where you might still have more to learn, but you're aware of it and you're open to it and you're excited about it and you're going to make the most of it. And so I think that regardless, you have a lot of wisdom, and being able to recognize where you still have room to grow and being open and excited to start that journey. And so your spirit guides are like, yes, great. We love it. We love to see it. You got a great attitude. I think they really do commend that. And while like you might have gone through some really dark stuff, I think that you have or are learning to have a lot of compassion for yourself and for other people. And that comes from your experiences that you've had. It's like Ed, for example, since that is our character that we're using for you, he is, he might be a little bit blunt and a little bit harsh sometimes, and he's definitely very prideful. He's got a bit of an ego on him, and maybe you do too. Like I said, I think a lot of you are very smart. Whether or not you recognize that in yourself, you are, and probably very accomplished by the standards of other people as well. Although even if you're not, you still are very smart. If people don't recognize that, it's just they haven't, maybe whatever area that you really shine in is an area they just haven't explored, or hasn't been conventionally recognized as worthy of, praise yet. But I do feel that for a lot of you who have maybe been through some stuff like Ed, while he can be harsh and he can be blunt and he can come across as a little bit cold at times when dealing with people in suffering, that's just from a place of like wanting to motivate people, wanting to help people out of that. He is a very compassionate person, and he and his brother both don't like to sit by and watch people suffer. They like to use their abilities when they can. Sometimes they take on a little bit too much, or take on like the brunt of responsibility for things that they didn't necessarily have that much control over. They are very young, and like I said, they've taken on and been through quite a bit at a young age. And for some of you, this transformation that you've been through, you might still be quite young, and you might have felt like a lot of your life was like front loaded with a lot of struggle. So you could go through this transformation, and now you've got the rest of your life to kind of live in your new existence and build your new situation. It's kind of similar to Ed's story, but regardless of where you are in your life, regardless of what your age is, I feel like you can relate to some of that story. And also, time is fake, age is but a number, and you have plenty of time in this lifetime and the next to continue this journey and this exploration. So yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of, I think the word profound is coming to mind, and I feel like your story, yourself, how you think, there's a lot of profundity there that your spirit guides are wanting to highlight. Okay, so with that, I want to continue. Yeah, we're gonna use the quote cards. I mean, look, there's so many of them, and it's so funny because there's so many of them. I swear to God, if we keep getting the same ones. But sometimes out of like hundreds of quote cards, if I go through a period of time where I'm just getting the same ones over and over again, I take that as it's just that those are the themes that maybe I'm working on right now. So they might just be relevant for a while. Yeah. Anyway, great job, guys. You've really done something incredible in your life. And like I said, that doesn't have to be like some kind of external achievement. It can be a very internal achievement. I think for a lot of you, regardless of if there's external proof, quote unquote, of it or not, that it has been a very internal achievement. Actually, also I got for some of you, like, whatever you're most proud of in your life is not something that people can externally see or experience, other than like experiencing your energy maybe changing. I think for a lot of you, you're most proud of like the stuff that people can't see, that you have transmuted. There's that word transmutation, which is big in Full Metal Alchemist, within yourself. That's been your biggest accomplishment. And your spirit guides say that no matter if like that's widely recognized by other people, they see that and they commend that, and they're very proud of that. There's a lot of pride here, which is funny because pride is kind of an important part of Full Metal Alchemist, both like in a literal sense, but also in like a metaphorical sense. Ed is a very prideful character, like I said, so that may be something too that you deal with, is maybe a bit too much pride, but hey, you can be proud of yourself. Look at this. This is incredible energy here. So, all right, let's see. Spirit guide, okay, we'll take that. What else do you want to say? Remember, we are giving them a little hype session here. So let's see. What else do you want to say? Anything else? Okay. And anything else? Anything else for group 1? You know what? We'll take that. I have way too many cards. Okay. Okay. So okay, so we've got these quote cards. Let's read them. Oh, okay, so we have, why raise children on the promise of magic? Why create a want in them that can never be satisfied? For revelation, for transformation, and then set them adrift in a bleak, pragmatic world. From Hellbent by Lee Bardugo. So yeah, and then we have this little like cat character that I made up, looking at these like glowing lights. So, ooh, yeah, like I kind of brought this up earlier, but this idea of potentially for you a struggle between quote unquote practicality and more esoteric or spiritual concepts that like aren't considered practical in like the modern Western world, right? like and I think for you've either already bridged that gap for yourself. Maybe you grew up with like a lot of wonder in you. Maybe you love stories as much as I do and magic and stuff like that, and you always were drawn to that, but felt like the rest of the world that you were in didn't really reflect that. And possibly part of your transformation and struggle has been rediscovering and embracing the magic in yourself, right? And maybe for some of you, you grew up, part of your struggle was growing up very intuitive in one way or another, and then having that sort of doubted or doubting yourself or not really being able to acknowledge it fully because you didn't feel like you saw that experience reflected in the people around you. And you had to grow through that and really come back to embracing the wonder in yourself and the magic and opening back up to that. And your spirit guides want to, whether you've embraced that fully or not, they want to highlight that part of you that like yearns for the magic, believes in the magic, and they want to say like that's an amazing, beautiful part of you, and that whether that's something you've already cultivated and they're very proud of you for doing that, or something that you are still sort of maybe in conflict with, they want to highlight that as like, it's not a bad part of you. Embrace that more, you know? Feel free to embrace that more. But also, they respect your skepticism and your pragmatism as well. I think that it's a balance, and that is something that you have been working on, is having that balance, you know, maintaining your connection to the physical world around you and maintaining a connection to the more spiritual, invisible world that that you have access to. And yeah, they want to encourage that you continue to develop that. We have this like, this reminds me of like fish scales, kind of like the rainbow fish almost. Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. From Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Now, not recalling exactly what the original context for this quote was, I feel like this is kind of speaking to what I was just talking about. Like, see, ooh. Okay. So for some of you spirit guides here want to highlight either that you already have or that you have the potential to bring together science and spirituality in some way. Like, you see the connection there, and some of you might very literally have a hand in bringing those two things together, like throughout your lifetime. That might be a role that you play or have already played. For some of you, it's just something that maybe like depending on what, like some of you, maybe you've really developed your spirituality through your first part of your life. And then after this transformation, you're going to learn to bring the science into it. Some of you, it might be the opposite. It might be flipped in terms of like, you've spent more time in the scientific, pragmatic, physical world, and you're bringing that now with you into a spiritual journey where you're connecting the two of those things. And finding the method in the madness, finding the order in the chaos, bringing things together, and understanding how everything is actually related to one another. For some of you, it's not even necessarily even like literally about that, but like that perhaps like Edward Elric, you have this experience of going through the portal. You've seen the truth in a sense. You know, maybe you had like a experience with your third eye opening and you saw the method to the madness, you saw the order and the chaos, you saw how everything in the world, like universe, fit together, and like that's an experience that you tapped into or you're looking to tap into, and it's very exciting for you, and your spirit guides are like, yes, like it's very cool, like good job. And encouraging you to embrace those experiences and take that as confirmation that yes, there's meaning here for you. There's meaning. Yeah, some of you maybe you had a bit of a, like through your transformation experience, had a bit of a dark night of the soul where you were struggling to find meaning and purpose, and you've had the breakthrough of finding that through seeing how things are connected and seeing how you like we're both discovering meaning and also creating meaning at the same time, if that makes sense. And so finding your power through that realization, and that's really exciting. And then we have this card, Once the mind has seen through all fear and all hope, it finds peace within itself in a state of awareness beyond thought. So yeah, I think for a lot of you, you have really done a lot of work in terms of your mind, your mental energy, anxiety possibly, and you've really transformed that, and you've made great strides in living a life that's less ruled by the mind and less ruled by the ego in a negative way, but is able to use those aspects of yourself to your benefit instead of your detriment. Actually, I didn't point this out, but on the bottom of the deck we have the 10 of Swords, which speaks to, the swords are the mental energy, and the 10 of Swords is the end of a cycle. So I do feel like for a lot of you, this cycle that I mentioned had to do with your mind a lot, had to do with like how you see things, your perspective, and you had a huge perspective shift that, again, like your spirit guides are saying is great job. They're very proud of you. We have this card as well. But wasn't that love, seeing what no one else could? From Bone Gap by Laura Ruby. So yeah, I think for a lot of you, they're also highlighting your ability to see the best in people, see the best in situations, see what other people either are unable to or are unwilling to see about themselves, about other people. They're encouraging you to continue to do that, to be able to see love and to see the potential for love in all situations. And for example, like this is a specific, like a weirdly specific situation, but like it's like, say someone is like dating someone new. They bring them home to their family, and their family doesn't really understand this person, and they're just kind of like, well, they're kind of weird, like I don't get them or whatever. But there's nothing actually wrong with this person. It's just that the way that they behave and the things that they do are different than what the family expects them to be. But oftentimes, like the person who's in love with that person, like they'll see that person in a completely different light than like the rest of their family or their friends or whatever. And they'll see the best in them. And while yes, sometimes obviously there are stories of people not being able to see ways in which people could be mistreating them, there's also just like the element of like there's a difference between that and like just seeing how someone's traits that other people might be able to judge on the surface as like weird or just different. You can see how they are beautiful, beneficial. You have an open mind to the different experiences and the different ways that people express themselves, and you're not put off easily by others' judgments of people, especially not when those judgments are of traits that are more or less benign, but just might come across as strange or just unusual. And I think that your spirit guides are commending you for being able to see that, and also maybe encouraging you, like, that yes, it's fine. You don't have to align with the judgments of the people around you. And I think that you have a strong sense of what you like, and when you love something or when you love someone, you are always open to seeing the best in them and changing your perspective around your own preconceptions and judgments. And that's a really beautiful trait and something that's quite lovely. And there's something I just got to of like, you're protected. So it's like you can feel free to continue to keep your mind and heart open in this way. And sometimes, like, we shut things down quickly because we feel vulnerable or scared, but they're saying that you're protected and you can continue to do this and to expand your acceptance of yourself and others and all of the idiosyncrasies and like weirdnesses, and you're safe. You're not going to fall into any quote unquote traps. You're not going to, and in fact maybe you're working to not overlook things that could be harmful, but also accept the things that and see things in a different way that are simply people's quirks and people's personal experiences coming out in their actions and their words and their vibes, and like seeing the beauty in everyone and everything. And we also have Never Doubt I Love, which just before I read the quote, I believe is the spirit guide saying never doubt that we love you and also that you have quite a bit of love in you to give, and they are appreciative of that. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. From Hamlet. We have 2 Hamlet quotes here. And so Hamlet might be important for some of you as well. And it's interesting because Hamlet, well, he's definitely not an Edward Elric. It's kind of like, he's like almost like the opposite. Hamlet's he's dragged down by his inner demons, his experiences, darkness. He's not a character who's quite very quick to act or take responsibility. Well, he wants to be, though. He wants to be, and he just keeps getting stopped by himself, right? But it's just interesting. I feel that he's a bit of an opposite character, and yet I do love the story of Hamlet. And perhaps some of you relate to the character of Hamlet from your younger years, from before this transformation. This is a character that you connected with in some way or another. But also, here, this idea of doubt. I did mention skepticism earlier and how some of you might be skeptics or might tend towards that in some ways. And yet you might also have this immovable love within you, or this immovable knowing within you that once you know, you know. You might doubt a lot, you might be skeptical a lot, but when you come to an experience of realization or of knowing, like when you know, and you're also able to accept that. And maybe you've built a foundation of self-trust and you've overcome a lot of self-doubt as well. I think that that's something that either you're still working on or you've already done, and your spirit guides are like, yes, good work, and also we love you, don't doubt that. And then we have this, it kind of reminds me of like Avatar, like the Avatar state, or like someone who's like, you know, kind of experiencing that, I don't know, that state. And the quote is, "There is no greater freedom than the freedom to be what you are now," from Alan Watts. Yes, so I think a lot of you have freed yourselves up to be what you are now. And you've owned, and I think a lot of you have owned your past. You've owned things that you maybe felt guilty about or didn't know how to like accept in your past. You've owned that, you've taken responsibility for it, and you've set yourself free in this process. And that has been a big part of your transformation in this lifetime. And your spirit guides are so proud of you. And yeah, and it's great to see. So trying to think if there's anything else I want to do for you guys here. We'll get, I have these little like quotes from Rumi. So we'll just get a couple of those to finish off. Anything else you want to say, Group 1 spirit guides, about how amazing that they are? And another thing I also want to say is that for all that, for all that Ed can be a bit of he can have an ego, he can be blunt, he can be harsh, he doesn't always like get along perfectly with everyone. He does also have so many people in his life who genuinely love him and have compassion for him and see the compassion that he has within him. And he might not let everyone in to see that part of himself easily, but the people that he does let in are very loyal and devoted to him, and he can be very loyal and devoted as well. And so perhaps also your spirit guides want to highlight that, and also say that there's a lot of people like in your physical life who really love you and are loyal to you and would love if you maybe haven't shown some more of those sides of yourself, would want to see that and would love that aspect of you, or like the softer bits of you, if you don't show them very often as well. They want to assure you that those aspects of you are very lovable. Okay. So we just have some Rumi quotes to finish out. So we have, "I've gone beyond the self, I've soared beyond the limits of time, I've traveled to eternity, I've taken a strange form." Yeah, so a lot of you have like maybe had, like I said, a really wild transformation in your life, whether it's internal or external or both, and you feel like you're kind of in it, taking on a strange form, or you've had some, like I said, out of body experiences, or like, you know, stuff like that, and it's been quite interesting. But regardless, like you've done a great job at opening yourself up, I think, to a new life. We also have your touch dazzles all creation. Every particle is attracted to you, longing to unite and dwell in you. So I feel like with Ed and Al, through alchemy, they've experienced like all is one and one is all, like the knowledge of how everything is connected, and that's what helps them do their alchemy and understand alchemy in the way that they use it. But also, I think that's something that maybe you've come to understand as well. But also, like I was saying before about like people really like you, really like the real you. They really love the real you. And I think you draw a lot of people in. You have a certain charisma, whether you used it or exercised it or not. And yeah, people really love you. I don't know if you know that, but they do. And then we have, from the limits of the soil to the human being, there are thousands of levels. I have taken you from place to place, never to leave you along the way. Yeah, and that's your spirit team saying that. No matter where you've been, and as you've like ascended, transcended, however you want to think about it, as you've changed throughout your life, they've always been with you. They are still with you. No matter if you have moments where you don't feel them or you haven't connected with them, or you do, but sometimes that connection wavers, they're always with you. And while it's easy to place our human judgments onto our spirit guides and feel like they might be judging us from time to time, or that they are disappointed in us in some way, they're not. They see things a lot differently than we do, and they're always with you. And they're very proud of how you've done so far in your journey, and they're really excited to work with you throughout your next phase. And they just want to say that you've done a great job, and like it hasn't been easy, but you're doing great. and for any of you out there who doubt that, or who felt like the darker phase of your life was a mistake, or that you made mistakes during that time, they are saying that that you've been where you've needed to be, that you were meant to, if you accept this, it's not, you don't have to see every like difficult or dark thing as meant to be, but even if you don't see it that way, it's like what you've done with that has been incredibly beneficial to you. You've made the most of your situation no matter what, and you have really grown a lot, and you've done a lot of things I'm hearing like not a lot of other people can, or not a lot of other people are necessarily here to do this, but not a lot of other people would be able to do what you've done so far, I think. So, all right, with all that said, thank you for watching this reading, and thank you to your guides for coming through to praise you and to give you encouragement and to tell you how great you're doing, and mine as well for helping me bring this through. And so if you enjoyed this, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. If you're interested, my mom and I do offer tarot guidance sessions and recorded tarot readings on our site, as well as hypnosis. And my mom does human design. So I'll link that in the description, and you can check that out if you like. And I hope that you all have a great day. Great job. You're doing amazing. And see you in another reading sometime soon. Bye. Hi, Group 2. Welcome to your reading, which is basically just an opportunity for your spirit guides or whomever to brag about you. If you selected Arwen, then you're in the right place. And like I said, we're just gonna let your spirit guides or whomever come through and just like tell me what's so great about you, and through me tell you what's so great about you. You know what I mean? So yeah, as always, I'm leaving it kind of open for whatever wants to come up. But to start, I figured I'd use these character cards to sort of give an indication of maybe some aspects of you or your life or journey that are being brought up and highlighted. So you can be familiar with these characters or not. And of course, if something here doesn't sound, familiar or doesn't resonate with you, you can pick another pile and see if there's something else somewhere else for you. But I will start by just getting into who Arwen is from Lord of the Rings. So many of you will probably be familiar, but if you're not, Arwen is an elf, and she's the daughter of Elrond. Now, actually, I don't recall exactly what Elrond's position is within the elves. I believe he's a king, but also, I'm not sure if that's what they call it. But he's a very important figure among the elves of Middle-earth in Lord of the Rings. And during the time of the Lord of the Rings story, the elves are leaving Middle-earth and going into the distant lands where they will live forever, out of the reaches of men and the rest of the creatures who inhabit Middle-earth. And so Arwen's story is that she is the daughter of Elrond. She's, I think, thousands of years old by the time of Lord of the Rings, because elves are very long-lived and actually immortal. However, Arwen's story is that she has met and fallen in love with Aragorn, another character from the Lord of the Rings, and a mortal man. Although he does also live longer than what we consider a normal mortal lifetime to be, a lot longer, but he still is mortal and will die one day. And so Arwen's story is that she has chosen to stay behind and remain in Middle-earth to be with Aragorn. And one of the main conflicts in their relationship, although they're not the main feature of the Lord of the Rings, is that Aragorn is he's a descendant of kings, and he, in order to gain the approval of Elrond, her father, and also at her encouragement, is meant to take up the title of King of Gondor, which has been something that he has forsaken because of his lineage and things that happened in his past. He doesn't feel like he trusts himself to rule. He's not interested in his potential. And yet, this is something that he needs to do in order to, quote-unquote, be worthy of Arwen and also save, Middle-earth and stuff like that from the darkness. So, Arwen is a character who, actually, I think she gets quite a bit more development in the movies, and I'm more familiar with the films. It's been, so long since I've even read any part of the books. But I believe her role was expanded a bit in the films. And actually, she's a character, she doesn't get to, participate that much in the main storyline. She does have some really great moments, and I find a lot of respect for her character. She's someone who I feel has a very, she's got a very regal air, but she's also someone who clearly embodies a sense of, purity and light. And I don't say that in a, although who knows, from the original perspective that she was written in, maybe it was something about, purity in the sense of, how we see, I don't know, from, a Christian perspective or something like that. I see it more as, she's represented by the even star, Arwen, and that's, I forget the Elvish word for it, but she's, Arwen even star. She's always surrounded and enveloped, a lot of the elves are, in this, white light. She's sort of angelic in how she speaks and appears, and a lot of the elves emanate this kind of that kind of resonance as well. And there is something to her storyline where, as darkness is growing in Middle-earth, which is the main conflict of the series, her light is fading, and so she is kind of tied to her fate is kind of tied to the fate of the rest of Middle-earth. And so I see her as being a very sensitive being, being a very, she's someone who shines brightly, but also she is affected by what's happening around her. And she also cares very much about what's happening around her. She is someone who also is able to accept light and darkness. She and it's also very important to her to make her own decisions about life, because her father Elrond wants her to move on and live an immortal life. He doesn't want to lose her, and he tries to persuade her at every turn to come with him. But at the end of the day, she says, it's her choice, and her choice is to live a mortal life and be with the person that she loves. And I do feel like there is a lot of power in that story for her. She's someone who can accept the bitterness of grief in order to experience the wonderful feeling of love, and she can take those two things together. And I also have a quote. I didn't include this in the first one. I might go back and add that in later, but for you guys, I have a quote. But the Queen Arwen said, "A gift I will give you, for I am the daughter of Elrond. I shall not go with him now when he departs to the havens, for mine is the choice of Luthien, and as she, so I have chosen, both the sweet and the bitter." So she's very okay and down with the bittersweetness of life, and she can accept that. And so all that to say, for a lot of you, what's being highlighted here is there's something about the light that you guys shine, and your pure heart, right? And your ability to love and to accept the light and the darkness that your spirit guides want to highlight to me. Also, Arwen is, at the same time, she's a fierce warrior. We don't get to see her fight much, but we know that she is from a few scenes that we see. She is, she's also someone who, maybe through the mechanics of the story, but also I read it in this way as well, is she's able to allow other people to, she'll step in and play her role, but she's able to allow other people the space that they need to fulfill their own potential. She's someone who encourages Aragorn, and she wants him to live his best life and be who he's meant to be, and she'll support him in that way, and she will encourage him to do the things that he needs to do, but at the same time, she has her own life, and she will let him go on that journey himself. And maybe in the story as a female character, she doesn't just, get as much play, so she's kind of not allowed to be along with the rest of the other characters on their journey, at least from the standpoint of the era in which The Lord of the Rings was written. But I choose to see it as especially the elves do all kind of give me the impression of beings who see a little bit further than others and have a bit more knowledge and are in tune with the workings of the universe and know what role they have to play, and also know when it's not their role to play, and can move within they're very in touch with spirit. And maybe you're very in tune with spirit, maybe you're very in tune with the universe and how it moves, and your spirit guides are highlighting that as well, that you're able to take the steps that you need to take, follow the signs that you're given, follow the intuition that you have, and yet also take a step back and allow things to play out as they're meant to play out without getting too attached to an outcome or too controlling of the workings of the universe. You have a good balance of that, or you're doing a very good job at developing that balance at this time. So I feel like that's what your spirit guides are emphasizing about you at this time. But let's get some more information and get some cards to see what else they want to say about you. But I will say, I find Arwen, I have a lot of respect for her. And I feel like that's what's being highlighted as well, is that your spirit guides find you, that they have a lot of respect for you. Honestly, yes. I think they do want to highlight that you're someone who they have a lot of respect for. And it's easy to, as humans, if we do resonate with and connect with, higher beings, quote unquote, it's easy to see that in the form of hierarchy, we're lesser than them, they know better than us, and it's because they're better than we are, kind of thing. But hierarchy is a very human construct, and these beings that we're communicating with might have this higher perspective because of like where they're coming from in the, I don't even know how the universe works, but these are things that I'm kind of just going off of based on my impressions and my understandings and what's just coming through to me. But like the idea that like no one's better than we are. We're just in this perspective right now, and so our ability to tune into other perspectives allows us to see a little bit further than we would normally be able to see. But we're not stupid or dumb as humans. We're having this experience for a reason. We're here in having these perspectives because that's what we wanted to do. That's how we learn and grow. And so they actually want you to know that they have a lot of respect for you and what you've been doing in this lifetime and who you've become and who you are. And they want to remind you of who you have always been, right? It's more than this human incarnation. This is just one part of who you are. So, so let's get some more from your spirit guides. What else do they want to say? What else do you guys want to say? Okay. What else do you guys want to say to pile or group 2? What else do you want to brag about them? Yeah, they've got a lot of respect for you guys. And what else? Okay, we will. Okay. We'll take that. Okay, so we've got the Ten of Strength, which is the Ten of Wands. We've got the Queen of Intelligence, which is the Queen of Swords. We've got the Lovers. We've got Temperance. And we've got the Two of Intelligence, which is the Two of Swords. Okay. So. Okay. So one thing I'm drawn to, okay. Let's put it this way. So Arwen is a character who, she is she's like a lady. She's like she can come across in the movies as like, on the one hand, very like, dainty and delicate, but not in like I don't mean this in like a demeaning way, but in like her demeanor, but more so her looks and stuff like this. Yet she's also a warrior. She's also someone who carries, a lot of experience and life experience, even if we don't get to see all of that in the story itself. And I feel like with this Ten of Strength here, this person on the Ten of Strength or Ten of Wands is a much like, so if you could see, a very kind of like sturdy looking like masculine figure, sort of at odds with the figure that Arwen cuts. But I feel like one thing that your spirit guides are highlighting is just how strong you are, just how like, no matter what you look like, whether you're more on the masculine, like big burly side, no matter what your gender is, or you're more on the feminine dainty side, or anywhere in between, you've got the ability to carry a lot. And perhaps you have carried a lot of burdens over your lifetime, because this Ten of Wands here is about carrying burdens. And I kind of see it as like, I kind of see this, even though like I think this guy's actually like fighting these goblins off. My first impression was almost like someone who is like carrying like not necessarily like children specifically, but carrying a lot of people, like able to carry the weight of a lot of people with them. Like you're like almost like, and this is another Lord of the Rings character, but almost like Sam vibes when like if you've seen the Lord of the Rings or read it. I don't actually know if this happens in the book, but I'm presuming it might. When Frodo is reaching the end of his journey to get the ring to Mount Doom, and Sam, his companion, who has come with him all this way and watched him suffer, when Frodo can't take another step, Sam picks him up, and he says, if I can't carry the ring, because they're carrying the ring of power to destroy it. If I can't carry the ring, I can carry you. And I feel like perhaps you have carried a lot of people in your life, and maybe you have the capacity to do that. And I feel it like, even though this guy I think is supposed to be fighting the goblins, I see it in a more friendly way, right? And at the same time, possibly you have also learned how to let go of other people's burdens and not take on that weight so much. Like, I think you're strong enough to do so, and you've got a lot of capacity to carry others, but you've also learned how to not do so to the detriment of yourself or to the detriment of others and their learning journeys. You know what I mean? And then also maybe on a more metaphysical level, they're highlighting, whether, even if it's not just like specifically people, they're highlighting that you have taken on a lot of burdens in this lifetime, or perhaps in past lifetimes, or in many lifetimes. You can take on a lot. You've handled a lot, and it's brought you all this growth that you're embodying already in this lifetime. I feel like you are someone who, whether you feel like you've had to deal with a lot of that kind of thing in this lifetime or not, you have in other lifetimes, and you've brought that with you, and you are very good at embodying that now. And you're only getting better at that. With the Queen of Intelligence, which is the Queen of Swords, I think they're also highlighting here your intelligence, of course, but also your ability to communicate clearly and with compassion, and set boundaries. Actually, kind of like what I was just saying. So they're really wanting to highlight your ability to set boundaries in the sense of like if you've taken on, or you have the capacity to take on a lot of burdens of those around you, setting the boundaries with yourself that you will not do that, and allowing yourself to both be compassionate towards other people when dealing with their burdens and problems and things like that, while also allowing them to work through their own stuff, right? Knowing that that you can be there for them in any capacity that you're able to, but it's not up to you to learn the lessons that they are meant to learn, or have the experiences that they're meant to have. You know what I mean? Like, you have that balance of caring about your fellow people, and also knowing when to back off and let them have their experiences without taking that burden for yourself. And like I said, for a lot of you, this might have been something that has been difficult for you to learn, and yet your spirit guides are saying that you have done an excellent job of learning that lesson and taking better care of yourself, and thus also taking care of people around you, in the sense that you can let them be who they are and let them have the experiences that they're having, without interfering in a way that's detrimental to you and those people as well. And yes, and with the lovers here, there's a lot of balance. I feel like there's a lot, they're highlighting as well with the lovers, this sense of self-love, and of like having brought together two parts of yourself that might have been in conflict, and seeing how those parts of you can work together. I'm getting for some of you, it might have been a conflict of like the heart and the mind, and you've been able to bring those two together. And while it might have been a struggle, because the mind can be can be the one that sort of cuts you off from your passion. It can take over and be overprotective of you. And your heart is what's really meant to be leading you, and your mind is what helps you implement the desires of your heart. But if your mind becomes too overprotective, it cuts you off from your heart and doesn't allow you to experience joy and passion and tap into the things that you're really meant to do. And I feel that you have made great strides in that area, and you're being encouraged to keep going in that direction if that's something you're still working on, but also just like congratulating you on having done a great job of overcoming that disparity, and being able to help those two elements of yourself come together and work together, because that has made all the difference. Yeah, balance. I mean, temperance, like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's that balance. And I do feel that Arwen is very good at that balance as well. She kind of embodies that, where there is a moment in the films where she decides, okay, you know what, maybe my father is right and it's time to just move on. Hope is kind of waning in Middle Earth, and it's like the darkest hour kind of moment of like, are we even going to make it? And she decides to start making the journey to go leave Middle Earth, and it's a final journey. Like, if she leaves, she's never going to come back. That's where the elves are going. But when she is on the way there, she's not really fully at peace with this decision. It's something that she's doing for her father. And while you could see her staying as being something she's doing for Aragorn, it's really something she's doing for herself, because that's where her heart lies, right? So along that journey, she has a vision of Aragorn as king, and of a child as well that she would have with him. And this is something that her father had seen as well, but he didn't tell her about it, because the elves have visions of the future. And it's kind of implied that they can see possible different timelines and futures. And they can tell when like a certain timeline is more likely than another. And so the fact that she sees this vision, she immediately turns around because she knows in her heart this is what she wants, and she knows in her heart that that future is not gone, right? There's still a possibility for it. And so she decides to follow her heart and returns to her father, who's still in Middle Earth, and demands to be allowed to stay and play her part and do what she can to bring about the future that she desires. And so I feel like it's almost like a conflict. Like I said, like Elrond is kind of like the head and she's kind of like the heart in that situation. And she ultimately at great risk to herself, and yet also out of her purest desire, she is able to bring forth the future that she desires. So for some of you, you might have actually had an experience like that where you had to go against maybe what other people in your life wanted for you. And they might have wanted it out of their best interest. Like they thought they were acting in your best interest, but you knew in your heart there was another path that you were meant to take. And you followed that, even though others around you may have doubted it or may have been afraid for you, which is totally fine, but also can be, it can be hard to go against that, right? It can be hard to go against the desires of those you love because they think they know better, but when you follow your heart, you know what's best for you, even if it looks sometimes a little crazy or just it doesn't make sense to other people. And so I feel that for a lot of you, you have had that kind of experience in your life, and your spirit guides are congratulating you on being able to tap into what you truly want and stick to that path, no matter what it looks like, no matter how dire things look, right? You always knew that what you wanted was possible and that you could get there. And, or even if you didn't always know that, like some part of you always believed it and you were able to follow that part of you, right? And get yourself onto that timeline of success and like of living your dreams. And for those of you who are like, I don't know if I'm quite there yet, like maybe you're in the middle of this journey, they're encouraging you to keep going. Like they're saying you're doing it, right? You've made excellent strides in that direction, and you're becoming a master, and you're becoming fully balanced. And with this Two of Swords here, although this is meant to just be like praising you about like how great you're doing and everything, I wonder if there are, well, okay, like what I was just talking about, like you have become a master decision maker in that you know how to decide with your heart, and you also know how to be more relaxed about your decisions. For a lot of you, you might have experienced a lot of indecision in the past, and that's something that you have learned to overcome. And that's incredible and amazing, because indecision can come from, like I said, a disparity between your mind and your heart. Your mind wanting to protect you in one way and your heart desiring something that your mind doesn't deem as safe for whatever reason, right? And so having overcome that, it allows you to make decisions that are better for you, better for everyone, really. And also causes you less strife over your decision making because you trust yourself more now. So I think you have developed your self-trust quite a bit. And again, if any of this is not necessarily, like, if any of this sounds a little lofty to you, but are things that you desire, then your spirit guides are saying that you're doing better than you think. Like, you might need to just give yourself more credit for how far you've come in these areas and recognize that you're already doing what you want to do, right? Like, you're already succeeding at who you want to be more than you even realize. And for those of you who feel like you're really just starting this journey, they're saying, like, you're doing great so far. Like, you're excellent. You've got, like, the vision of what you want, and you're taking those steps, and they want to continue to keep going because they can see that the future that you have ahead of you is exactly what you want, right? But more than that, some of you just need to recognize, if you don't already, and if you do, excellent. They're very happy for that. For others of you, you might just need to hear this, that you are already doing great, and it's just a matter of recognizing it, right? Like, it's just a matter of taking stock of the achievements that you've made so far, taking stock of how you've changed and grown in the direction that you've wanted to go in for so long. And for some of you, I was going to say earlier, you might have options in terms of where things can go for you. And again, it's like you've been so good at following your heart so far. You have nothing to fear when it comes to decision making. You will make, quote unquote, the right decision. But it's also like, I think you've got an understanding that what is, quote unquote, the right decision is not necessarily clear cut. It's kind of like, whatever you do with your life, you make of it what you will. And so you can kind of make anything the right decision if you have, quote unquote, the right attitude about it. And you'll know what that means. You know, you'll understand that in your heart if that resonates with you. But I think that you've got potential to kind of do whatever you want, make your life whatever you want it to be. And so it's just a matter of continuing to follow your heart and continuing to hone your mind to be the most useful tool that it can be for you, because you've already done that to a certain extent already. And like with this Queen of Intelligence here, you've got a very powerful mind. And perhaps in the future, I mean, in the past, it's been a little bit too powerful. Maybe some days it can still overpower you a little bit, but at the same time, it's an excellent tool. And the more you recognize that, and the more that you stand firm in your own strength, the more that you bring yourself into balance, the more you'll see that and experience that. But I think that a lot of you have been in that already, and you're doing great. And I want to actually now get some quote cards to see if we can get some more messages from your spirit guides. But yeah, overall, you've really come a long way in terms of, like I said, your decision making, your ability to follow your heart, your ability to choose. Yeah, oh my God, wait. I can't believe I didn't, this didn't click to me earlier, but Arwen is all about choice, right? Like making her own choice, choosing for herself, no matter if that choice makes sense to the people around her. And then you have the Two of Intelligence, the Two of Swords, which is a card about choice, about decision making. And especially in this deck, it's not the person blindfolded with two different swords, which can give the impression of like someone being confused. It's someone who might have two different options or multiple options in front of them, but they're taking the time to thoughtfully consider them, and also taking the time to really determine what they truly want. And like with Arwen, it's not that you might never stray from your true desires now and then, or you know, have a moment where you're like, all right, maybe they're right. Maybe I should do this instead of what I really want to do. But then you'll always get back on track. You take signs, you know, you'll see you'll get in touch with yourself and your true dreams, and you'll follow those when it really matters. And yeah, they're really commending you for that, because that takes a lot of strength, and you have that strength. So let's get some messages for you. It's so funny when like multiple of the same cards come out for the same readings when I have like 200 plus of these. That's too many cards. Come on. All right, spirit guides. Spirit guides. What else do we have? Ooh, okay. And group 2 spirit guides. Let's get just a couple more messages for them. What do you want to brag about to me? So I was originally feeling like this would be a higher energy reading, but I've been pretty low energy, I'm not gonna lie. Yet I feel like a lot of the messages that have come through have been a lot deeper than I thought they would go, and I appreciate that. I like that, because I feel like a lot of you have made a lot of really excellent progress in your life, and there's some gravity to that. That your spirit guides want to highlight. They want to be like, yeah, no, like we see what you've been through with all of this, and it means something to you, and it means something to us, and we respect that. Okay, so we've got this card with, she likes to read, she reads all the time, and she prefers to be reading several things at once. She says it gives endless perspective and dimension. This came out in another reading recently, actually, but yeah. So maybe a lot of you do like to read, and maybe that's one way that your spirit guides actually communicate with you. I know that's something that I feel very frequently led to things to read that just happen to be exactly what I need to hear in that moment. And so for some of you, this might be an indication that this is a way that you can connect with them more frequently and more directly. But for others of you, this is how you already connect with them, or at the very least, however you connect with your guides, you're already very in tune with that. Like, you take the signs, you see them, even if you're not necessarily consciously aware, although I feel like a lot of you are. With Arwen as the character that you've selected, she's very in tune, and I feel like you guys are as well. And whether you realize it or not, you are very good at taking those signs, and very good at seeing things from different perspectives and in a multi-dimensional way. You've got a very nuanced and nuanced perspective, and the ability to see things on multiple different levels. You're not so black and white, you know? But speaking of black and white, then we have this card here that says, I don't think you have to be alone to be lonely, from Fleabag. So for some of you, you might have experienced some loneliness in your life. I want to highlight, though, this person is standing out from the crowd, right? Which can come with loneliness, but I think the highlight here is saying that you're someone who's not afraid to do that. And you can shine your light in the darkest of places, just like Arwen kind of literally does, but also that you are a light to other people, and that you are someone who can go against the grain, who can go against what other people expect of you and what other people want you to do, and go with what you actually truly want. Which, again, for some of you, this might just be like what you came in with. You're already good at that, and like you're like, yeah, of course, like that's just how I live my life. For others of you, it might have been something that you've had to really work at and learn. And I just want to say there's no shame in that, because that's actually, if that's the case, then you're doing exactly what you've been meant to do. People who for whom that's not a struggle, but it's a strength they come in with, they have other things that they're focusing on, right? For you, that is exactly what you're here to do, and so you've been doing it perfectly. And again, like they have a lot of respect for that, and they know how hard that can be. And then we also have this card. A morning can start off like any other, but by nightfall, things have occurred that could change a course forever. Yeah. So a lot of you, yeah, okay. Like, going back to Arwen, Lord of the Rings, I mean, like, she could see that there are multiple different futures, just like all the elves seem to be able to tap into that, right? And she knows that just one action or one little thing that happens can change the course forever. So you're very good at maintaining hope, right? At even in when things seem to be taking a turn for the worse, you have the ability to realize that things aren't always how they seem, that anything can happen, and that even the darkest hour can turn into the brightest morning, right? And so you're very good at maintaining a hopeful and positive perspective in the face of things and situations that might not look so hopeful. And that's something that I just got for some of you. Like, I'm not like super into the manifestation community. It's like one of many things that I've looked into curiously. And some of you, maybe that's something that you are actively very into. And I know there's something about like with manifestation where you're consciously manifesting something and using different tools to do so, that there can be moments, at least from what I've seen people talk about, where some people see it as like a test. However you see it, there's like a moment where it looks like you're not going to get what you want, and it's kind of like a test for you, or however you want to see it, to see if you can overcome any fears that you have, or that you still have around the thing that you want. And so perhaps for you, you've become very good at that. And they want to highlight that's a great trait, right? That's a great thing that you've developed. And perhaps if you're still developing that skill of being able to maintain your vision of what you want and not be distracted by what you don't want, by that which is not in accordance with like the world that you want to live in and the reality that you want to inhabit, maybe you're very good at that, and you're getting very good at that, or you don't even realize it, but you're already very good at that. And they want to highlight that for you, that like just like Arwen didn't give up on her vision. She almost did, but she didn't. She had moments, like we all do, of thinking maybe the future that I want isn't available to me anymore, but then she got right back on course and she stuck to her convictions in the end. And that's what really matters. And your spirit guides are saying, like, no matter how you might feel like you falter from time to time, because some of you do probably feel like that from time to time, you always get back on course, and you're always in tune with with the ways in which the universe can like turn in your favor at any moment. We also have this card, which says, nothing good is a miracle, nothing lovely is a dream. So yeah, it's kind of like expanding on what I just said. Like, the word miracle and dream can give the impression of something that is nigh impossible, something that is out of reach and that you have absolutely no control over. And this quote highlights the idea that nothing is out of reach. Nothing is a miracle. Nothing is just a dream. Although seeing it from that perspective and delighting in the miracles that you experience around you is fun, and like something that you can definitely do and should do. Enjoy, the things that happen in your life that you didn't expect. It's kind of like you're very good at seeing what other people see as unreachable as very possible. You are very good at bringing miracles into your life. And it's to the point where some of you might not see it that way, because to you it feels so natural. But to other people, so many things about your life would seem a miracle to them because they don't have that perspective yet. Or the things that they're working on mean that those things that are normal to you now still seem out of reach. But for you, you might not even realize how much you've brought things into your life. Even if it's not things like physically that people can see, it's like a way of being that you've brought into your life that to other people would seem so miraculous. And for some of you, you might know this, but for others of you, you might have forgotten, or you might not recognize it because it's become so natural for you. But your spirit guides are taking a moment to acknowledge that and to say, you are a miracle worker, whether you recognize it or not. And you'll only get stronger at this as life goes on, but also like you already are that, right? And so it's recognizing that. It's taking a moment to look at the things that used to seem impossible to you and realizing that you've already made the impossible possible. So there's there's nothing you can't do, right? It's you've got like again, I'm returning to that thing in Lord of the Rings where Arwen just catches a sliver of a potential future that she could have, and she knows that from one perspective it's fading, but from another it's still there, and there's roles that she can play to make this come about, but it's also up to the greater forces of the universe, and she plays her part, she does the things that she knows that she can do, and then she also lets that, what will be, and she lets that come to fruition on its own. And you have mastered that. You're very good at that. And if you don't feel you've mastered that, you might just need to recognize it in yourself, but also like you are definitely in the process of doing so. And they're very proud of you. And then we have this card which says, "Death comes to all, but life comes first. Cherish it. Death is the destination, but the journey, that is life. That is what matters." From The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. So yeah, and I think for a lot of you, you have become masters of appreciating the journey that you're on. And you are good at allowing things to take their normal course, like I just said. With Arwen being that she accepts her death and she accepts, the bitter along with the sweet, you are very good at that as well. And you don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but you are able to see the bittersweetness of life as a blessing and as an experience that you can accept and enjoy even in your own way. And you're able to cherish that journey, and you're able to be excited for the future. And you really, for some of you, I just heard you've let go of control issues. So maybe in the past you've had more controlling tendencies towards life, and you are either stepping into now a less controlling outlook, or you already have, or that's what you're aiming towards. Maybe that's what you've set your sight on. Maybe that's the next thing that you're manifesting into your life. It just came to me for some of you, maybe those of you for whom this is true, you're not listening still, but if you are, for some of you, you might not even necessarily recognize all this stuff about yourself. Like, these might be things that are being highlighted to you because you don't actually realize or like give credence to just what a miracle worker you are, just what you've been able to manifest into your life. Like, you don't see it in that perspective. And this is your spirit guides being like, hey, get hype. Like, you look at what you did. Like, look at what you've done. So many people would see that as a miracle. And just because it came natural to you doesn't mean that you can't look at that and be like, whoa, look at what I can do. Because that can help you look at all the things that you feel are still impossible or difficult in your life and say, well, if I could do it there, then I can do that here. And maybe for a lot of you, that's what you've learned, is like you're starting to learn to take your skills. I think for a lot of you, this is around manifesting your ideal like life, your ideal timeline, and you're able to take that perspective that you've done with other aspects of your life and bring it into aspects of your life that have been more of a challenge for you, because you're realizing that like that power that you have extends to all areas of your life, and you're really coming into your power. Like with Arwen, you're coming into your power, and you're not letting other people in your life tell you what you can and can't do, who you can and can't love. Maybe for some of you, you have some kind of love story in your life, like Arwen, where people around you don't necessarily approve, or you feel like they wouldn't approve, or you're struggling with just like even society wouldn't approve, or you have like some mental blockages around that. And you're clearing those out, and you're learning to stand on your own 2 feet and be like, this is what I want. It's my choice. And I'm going to make that choice. And your spirit guides are being like, congratulations. That's great. And that's excellent. And like, continue to do that, because that's what life's all about. Right. And that may have been one of the tests that you've had to go through, and you're doing great, right? Like, you're overcoming it. You're learning your lesson, however you want to see it. Right. I don't always like to look at life as a lesson, but sometimes it can be useful, like a useful perspective to take. It just kind of depends on the situation and how you feel about it. And perspective is something that you can use to your advantage, right? So whatever perspective makes you feel the most empowered, whatever perspective feels the most attainable and yet the most empowering for you at the moment is really the best one to take. And for some of you, I think you already know that. I think you're already very good at that. Okay, so last but not least, I have some Rumi quotes. So I'm just going to get those for extra messages from your spirit guides, and then we'll close this out. So group 2 spirit guides, what else do you want to say to them? What else do you want to brag about to them? I have to say, like, I really do love this energy. I feel like you're super powerful. You might not realize it, but you are. Okay, we have, whatever I plant that is invisible will sprout and grow and become real. I only plant the seed I want to sow. Wow. So yeah, okay, like manifestation, whether you see it, like whether you actively think of it as manifestation and that's something you're into, or like you don't think of it that way, whatever it is, like you're very good at manifesting stuff in your life. Like you're very good at the 3D. That's why for some of you, I wonder if, even though Arwen is very ethereal and she comes across as very tapped in and like spiritual or whatever, for some of you might actually not be consciously that. Like that might not be how you identify your life, but yet you are, like you already have, like, yeah, you don't even know how tapped in you are. It's great. We have all your failures are due to greed for success, surrender ambition, and witness victory flowing your way. I think a lot of you have already done that. Have surrendered ambition and like I said, like a balance. Like you take action and you also allow other things to take action for you. You're either in the process again of mastering that, or you already have, or you're just coming to the realization of how you have done that already. And yeah, it's also, I think something here, like they're saying you have been able to recontextualize any quote unquote failures that you've experienced in your life in a way that helps you see them in a new light and not let them get in your way of future successes, because you understand like why they happened. And failure is something as well that is a perspective. You know, you can change your perspective around failure and see that nothing is really a failure if you choose to see it in a way where you learn something from it, or you realized how that quote-unquote failure brought you to something that you actually want more than what you thought you wanted. And I feel that you have become very good at seeing that throughout your life, and that's helping you step even more into your power, because you're not afraid of failure anymore. And we also have, when you are not desperate for life, you give life. When you are not in pain, you become the cure. You will no longer look for solutions, for you become the solution. Exactly. Like what I just said. Like, I hope you can see how that's all related, because it's all related. Yeah, you're not, when you have that balance, you're not desperate for the things that you want, because you don't feel like you can't have them. Nothing good is a miracle, nothing lovely is a dream. You don't feel like anything is out of reach anymore. And that in and of itself is a miracle of your existence, right? Like, oh yeah, once you don't feel like anything is out of your reach anymore, you become so powerful. And you also become so patient and allowing of the journey that you're on. And like your spirit guides are saying, that is excellent work. And for those of you who aren't sure if this is really you, but like you know that it's something that you want, like you're like, this sounds good, I just don't know if I'm this person yet. The fact that you want that means that it is on your path. Like that is who you're becoming. That is who you are, but you just have to recognize it more, like that kind of thing. And your spirit guides are saying like you are on that path, you are doing it. Like you just need to look around and appreciate that and like recognize that. And you're doing great, and it's amazing. And then on the bottom, I just want to read, I've gone beyond the self. I've soared beyond the limits of time. I've traveled to eternity. I've taken a strange form. So yeah, you have exceeded your limits. You have like gone beyond the limits of your mind. You've learned how to feel limitless, to be limitless. And if you don't feel like you've done that quite yet, you are well on your way and you're doing great. So, oh, this is so exciting, actually. Your spirit guides are very excited because they're like, you don't even know. You're prepared for like anything, but you don't even actually know yet, like what all is going to come to fruition in your life, you know? This is excellent. And actually 6 of wisdom, which is 6 of cups on the bottom of this deck. Like this is like, you know, fantasy, imagination, like using your mind as something expansive to imagine all the wonderful possibilities, and also know that life goes beyond even what you can imagine, you know? So you keep expanding your mind. Your mind has expanded a lot already, and you are continuing on that journey, and you're doing great, and it's great, and you've got a beautiful imagination is what your spirit guides are saying. So keep using it. Okay. So I think we're going to end it here, but wow, exciting stuff for you guys. Congratulations on that. And yeah, I hope you take all this to heart and you really internalize that this is you. And I hope that those of you who already have are like, no, it's me. It's great. So thank you to, you know, your spirit guides, to mine as well. Thank you to you guys for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe. And also, if you're interested, my mom and I do offer tarot readings on our website, sunflowerphilosophy.com. We offer tarot guidance sessions as well as recorded tarot sessions, and we'll likely be adding more options for that soon as well. So keep an eye out for that. But also, my mom does human design readings, and we also do hypnosis. So if you're interested, feel free to check that out. I'll put the link down below. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye. Hello, Group 3. Welcome to your reading. If you chose Declan Lynch, then you are in the right place. And today's reading is all about letting your spirit guides brag about you to me, and through me to you. So today I wanted to use characters to get into your reading. And so some of you may already be familiar with Declan Lynch from the Raven Cycle series and also from the Dreamer trilogy, both by Maggie Stiefvater. If you're not, no worries. I will just be using this character as a way to get into the energy and like talk about some aspects of you that may be relevant that your spirit guides want to talk about, and also explain more about what his character means to me and his story, which may or may not resonate in some ways with you. Of course, if you find that this reading doesn't resonate with you, you can always pick another pile. Always use your own intuition when discerning what messages are for you and what are not, as there may be some here that are for you, but some that aren't. So it's whatever you want to take on. I forgot to say this in group 2, but I'll say this to you guys now. I do want to mention that sometimes if we're getting praise, we don't always see it in ourselves, or we don't always want to accept it in ourselves because we have trouble accepting or seeing that which is really awesome about us. So that's something I want to say. If you don't see something in this reading in yourself, but it's like a good thing and you actually like want to be that and you want to accept it, then think of it as either you are moving in that direction and you are doing a great job, or think of it as maybe you are already that person. You're just having trouble recognizing it. So yeah, your spirit guides do want to brag about you. They're very excited about this reading. So let's get into Declan. So Declan is depending on if you're familiar with his story or not, you might know him from the Raven Cycle as simply a kind of distant and maybe even a little cold older brother figure who definitely seems to care about his brothers but maintains a distance from them, and has kind of a confusing role in his family line. In the Dreamer trilogy, you get to learn a lot more about his character and why he is the way he is, and get to see him explore and become, and I almost said explode actually, because he kind of does in a way. So something about Declan is that he's a very restrained character on the outside. He is someone who is very protective of his family. Family is very important to him. He lost both of his parents young. He has almost lost one or both of his brothers, Ronan and Matthew, who are younger than him. And he is someone who has assumed the role of like the family protector provider in the sense that he is in control of the family fortune that his parents have left to his brothers, and he also sees himself as the one who has to keep them safe and take responsibility for essentially keeping them alive, because his younger brothers are a bit different, at least in their external personality to him. Ronan is one who is a bit more self-destructive in his tendencies and has a lot of internal angst and doesn't know how to deal with his emotions, and so it has led him towards more self-destructive behavior. And Matthew is more of like the sweet puppy dog, youngest brother type who also, for reasons that I don't necessarily want to get into, like all the specifics of like what's going on with his character, he's like a very vulnerable character, also just because of like who he is and like how he was created. There's a lot going on there I won't get into, but the main idea is just that like he's vulnerable and not necessarily able to take care of himself, although he's not the same kind of risk as his brother Ronan is. So Declan has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, is what I'm trying to say. Some of you may have experienced this in your life, and I do feel that your spirit guides want to acknowledge this, that you may have had to take on a lot. And for some of you, that word explode I heard earlier, some of you might be, for some of you, I feel like there will be some people who have already sort of gone through the phase of like being very restrained and have already tapped into their more wild or unique or like internal self and learned how to express that better. Some of you might actually still be more of the constrained type on the outside, but you have a deep inner world and you have a lot more to you than meets the eye, because Declan is very much a character that has a lot more to him than meets the eye, and for him it's very calculated. He does very much wear a mask to the outer world, and then on his inner world he has a lot that he's repressed. And for some of you, you might actually still be, well, this is you know, your spirit guides bragging about you. For some of you, you might still be in a phase of repression, and that might be for reasons that are perfectly sensible in terms of what you're dealing with in your outer world. But your spirit guides want to acknowledge how much there is going on within you, and they want to acknowledge and highlight that you are really a quite fascinating and intriguing person on the inside, whether you share that or are able to share that or not. And also that you're very, for some of you, very responsible. You have a big heart, even if you don't necessarily share it. Like Declan is a very reserved and held back character in his emotional expression as well, but he actually does feel very deeply for the people in his life and care for them. He doesn't show that in the way that you might expect, but it's something about him that is still within him nonetheless. And I think that your spirit guides want to acknowledge that as well about you. I have to say, like, Declan might be a hard pill to swallow for someone on the outside, not because he's necessarily, his relationship with his brother, Ronan especially, is rather fraught, and so that's what you see most in the first series, The Raven Cycle. So for the reader, he can come across as a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, although, depending on your perspective, people might empathize with his situation right off the bat. But for others, it takes a while to learn him. But he also, I feel, for a lot of people, became a favorite character. And a lot of people were really intrigued by this character who doesn't seem to display much interest on the outside. But it's easy to tell that it's actually very calculated, that there's a lot more going on in there that we can't see, and that makes for a very intriguing character. So perhaps for a lot of you, you are someone who gives off that vibe, but people do find you intriguing nevertheless. And you might be a very... I'm not sure I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. We'll get there because we're going to pull some cards too. There's also a quote I did for this one, which I didn't think to do for the first group. Sorry if you're here from the first group as well, but that group number 1 is also about an elder brother who bears a lot of responsibility and like personal anguish about their past in a almost similar way. Yet different vibes. Like I get similar but different vibes from them. But anyway, here's a quote. But joy is a small, tenacious crop, especially in soil that hasn't grown any for a long time. Yeah. So one thing about Declan is that he has had to suppress a lot of his joy, his childish personality. He's also not necessarily a character who's ever necessarily had a childhood in the sense that a lot of other people do. And I do feel for a lot of you, there is that responsible side to you that may be more straight-laced or reserved part of you that is not necessarily like just a front or an act or not necessarily just a protective layer. It's just part of who you are. But I do feel like your spirit guides are highlighting like the duality of you, that both sides can exist simultaneously. And perhaps for some of you, you have found a really good balance between yourself, and for some of you, you're still learning to accept that. And I do feel like your spirit guides are saying like both sides of you are beautiful, even if you feel like they are at times in conflict with one another. So you might have had at some point in your life, or still have, some kind of internal struggle about wanting to be more expressive or wanting to explore more, but yet also wanting to maintain balance and responsibility and have respect for the parts of you that are just more reserved and more comfortable being that, but like from a place that's just who you want to be, you know? There's nothing wrong with that either. And it's just about maybe finding a balance there. One thing Declan Lynch has, which I feel like the fans have coined this term for his, like, he's got like an attic kind of thing. His like repression closet, people call it, where he keeps all of the art and stuff that he's really into. Because he deeply loves art, but he doesn't necessarily show that, or like whatever. He tries to be very bland. He tries to draw as little attention as possible. So he has a little closet where he keeps like parts of his personality he won't show. Maybe some of you have that as well. But let's get some more information on what your spirit guides want to praise you about, because like I said, all of this stuff is not necessarily a bad thing, even though like some people might say ooh, okay. Yeah. Like, I do get for some of you, maybe there is a yearning to show more of yourself, or some kind of internal conflict about, like, your, like, responsible side versus your more spontaneous or, like, wild side, your weirdness. But your spirit guides want to congratulate you on all aspects of yourself, and want to encourage you to embrace all aspects of yourself because they see it as quite beautiful. They think you're a very fascinating and complex human being, and that you deserve to recognize that and be, ooh, yes, okay. I think I only did 4 for group 1, but okay. You know what, we're gonna do it like this. I'm doing a little different for every pile, but that's okay. All right, so group 3. I hope I said group 3. Group 3. So, first of all, we have this 4 of charisma, which is the 4 of coins here, or 4 of pentacles, with this like little small like dragon with its hoard. So I do feel like you've got a bit of a hoard. Like I was talking about Declan's repression closet. Like I feel like you've got like somewhere, somehow you have your own version of that. And you're sitting on a lot of gold right now. And that could be like art that you love. It could be things that, it could be the aspects of your personality that you don't share with other people. It could be skills that you haven't demonstrated to other people, or that you keep very close to, you play your cards very close to the chest, but you've got a lot going on underneath. And this is acknowledging that. And this is saying like, it's emphasizing that this is how you have so much gold within you, whether that's wisdom, artistic talent, creativity, all of the above, whatever it is, you've got a lot of it. And you might be very protective of it like Declan is, but Spirit is saying that they see it and they acknowledge it, and they want to acknowledge that, because I do feel like for a lot of you, you are not in a position, or have not been in a position, or just like don't often get the opportunity to share a lot of yourself with others. But they see it, and they are very impressed by it. We also have the King of Strength, and it's the King of Wands, but in this case, I'm really like strength, King of Strength. I do feel like you have a very strong and reserved demeanor, whether you recognize that or not. I feel like it's almost like this is you behind closed doors, and this is you to the rest of the world. Like, you present a very calm face, but you might have a lot going on under the surface. Ooh, for some of you, there is an element where you might have a lot of emotional turmoil that you don't share that happens within you. And when I say turmoil, I mean like you might have a lot more emotions in general. You might see it as turmoil, but you might have a lot more emotions in general that you don't share with the rest of the world, that don't come out very often. And I do feel like, in a way, Spirit is recognizing that emotion within you, and assuring you that that is part of your goal, that's part of your gift. So for some of you, if you're having trouble or have had trouble accepting your emotions because you're more comfortable being a more reserved, or you're used to being a more reserved, emotionally reserved person on the outside, they are saying that they recognize your emotions, and that they know that you do have them, and that they're not a bad thing. They're a very good thing. And you might feel threatened by them sometimes, because we all do. But they want to congratulate you on your sensitivity, because I think a lot of you are very sensitive without necessarily being able to express that, but also without necessarily, like, that might not be as much a part of your personality on the outside, but it's part of you on the inside, and that's not a bad thing, right? We have the Eight of Strength here, which is the Eight of Wands. Yeah, we got, okay, so Eight of Wands. Now, I actually don't have an immediate impression for what this is about, which makes me want to look at the booklet here, if I can find it. Where's my little booklet? I usually keep it like right next to me while I'm doing readings. Oh, here you are. So I'm gonna read that. So the Eight of Strength, Eight of Wands, which can be a very fast-moving energy. Ooh, okay. Maybe for some of you, you are very... Okay, yeah, going with the flow and adapting to change. Hold the goal loosely and enjoy the journey. Yeah, so maybe some of you can be very go with... Okay, so for some of you, you have a very, like... You could have a very rigid exterior, or potentially, like, have a rigidity to you and how you do things, and yet also have a very flowy, maybe internal life or internal nature. So I'm thinking, like, okay, like in astrology, I can't pretend to be an expert, but like it's coming to me that like a Sagittarius moon or something has a very go with the flow internal nature, but a more fixed sign like in the sun or ascendant would be maybe at odds with that. So something more fixed would be like, what's a fixed? Taurus, definitely. Whereas Sagittarius is like Taurus is like, I believe that's fixed. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's earth, so it's like more slow moving, and Sagittarius is like fire and it's more flowy. Go with the flow. Some of you have that like go with the flow nature, which is maybe at odds with some more, some other parts of you, but they're also saying that that is actually a good balanced part of your nature, that maybe you are very good at going with the flow in certain ways, and they are saying like, yes, that's good, and perhaps that's been something that you've been learning how to do, and you're getting a lot better with it, because maybe that's something that you've needed to bring more balance into your life. Like, whatever, however, I do feel like there's some conflict in your personality. That's just like mental conflict. It's not something that's like wrong with you or whatever, but you might feel like there is. Like there might be some conflict in your personality because you maybe feel like you should be more one way than the other. You feel out of balance. If you don't feel that way, then just like take the other messages as they resonate. But for some of you, this is like a reassurance from your guides of like, no, you're fine. You're supposed to be that way. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's a matter of just learning how to love that and learning how to use that, right? Like, use the different sides of you. You need both, right? You need both. Whatever parts of your nature that seem to be in conflict with one another, they're both important. It's just a matter of allowing them to work together in the best way possible. And I do feel like for a lot of you with the Six of Wisdom here, which is the Six of Cups, you've got a vivid imagination. You've got a more flowy, like, internal nature that allows you to have all of that gold. I feel like for some of you, like, you're being congratulated on your creativity. Like, you've got a very creative mind, and you're sitting on a gold mine of ideas and information. And you might not necessarily know how to express that yet. Like I said, you might not want to, like, that might not be something that you're interested in doing right now, but nevertheless, there's something here being emphasized about that. Like, I think your spirit guides want you to know in no uncertain terms, you are a very creative, you're a very creative person, very imaginative, and you have a lot going on in there that they see that is very valuable. You might not, I don't know why I wasn't getting this as much for the other groups, but I feel like for this group, some of you are a little down on yourself or have been and have been overcoming that, but some of you might still be a little down on yourself in terms of, like, not knowing what to do with your imaginative nature, or just feeling like that's a part of you that's not really useful. Like, you engage with it, it's fun, but it's not useful, it's not important. But your spirit guides are saying it's very useful, it's very important. It probably has more of an impact on your life than you realize if you've been discounting it. And it's a very important part of your experience that, whether you know it or not, is worthwhile. And for some of you, you know, like, Declan Lynch does kind of have a moment of reckoning where he, like, kind of explodes, and, like, a lot of stuff that he's been holding on to or trying to over control or whatever, he just lets go of it all, and he starts to let himself live a little bit more, and he opens himself up more to spontaneity and to, like, he's also, like I said, one element of his story is that he's very, like, zipped up. He, like, wears his suits and stuff. He goes to Sunday church with his brothers. He works in politics. He wants to work for a politician, whatever. He keeps himself very boring on the outside. And like I said, this is very calculated for him. But we also learned that in his childhood, his sense of responsibility and his sense of organization was actually part of him from an early age, in contrast with his parents. So some of it might have been just his personality, and some of it was also a response to a lot of trauma, a lot of chaos in his early years, losing both of his parents and having to take over responsibility for his brothers. So there's both aspects of that, where he's already that kind of person, but then it's exacerbated by his trauma, and he feels like he has to be in control at all times of himself and of his brothers in order to keep his family alive and together. Then as he starts to grow and become less settled in that way of approaching the world, when he's ready to grow and move beyond being so constrained, because there is a part of him that's yearning to be more emotionally involved and be more open with what he loves. He loves art. He, wants to express that in some areas, in some ways of his life. He meets a girl who's an artist who is basically, like, everything he wants, but also everything he's afraid of having. Again, not getting into some of, like, the more esoteric elements of the story. Like, she kind of embodies some of the fears he has around, like someone who could easily be taken away from him because of a situation that's outside of both of their control, right? But he loves her. And in fact, like, he's the kind of person who might seem very constrained and has, like, dated, like, 3 different girls with the name Ashley, because he's not interested in having deep, like, relationships. Like, he just kind of, like, stays in his lane, right? But then with this girl, it's different, and he can't really hold himself back. And it's really hard for him to, like, he loves and embraces so much coming out of his shell, but he also has moments where he, like, wants to run away from it, or just thinks that it can't end well because of things that have happened in his childhood. And he has to reckon with that. He has to come to the other side of that situation like being willing to embrace himself, but also being willing to embrace the possibility of loss in order to attain the possibility of great happiness, of embracing more of himself, of being more of who he is in the world, and allowing himself to have feelings and attachments to people, and let them be who they are as well, even if who they are feels dangerous because he doesn't know if who they are is going to get them killed. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And it's like very dramatic, like, you know, there's so much to his story that it's like hard to explain. The Dreamer trilogy is not the kind of novel with an easy elevator pitch that really explains what it's about. Neither is The Raven Cycle. But if you know, you know. And if you don't, if you're interested, it's a very fascinating series to check out. But Declan, all that to say, Declan does have to let himself off the leash. He has to learn to let himself off the leash. And so I do feel like for some of you, that has been part of your journey. And your spirit guides are like, excellent work. It was scary, we know, but like, it's worth it. And for others of you, they're saying, hey, like, you know, we see all of you. We love all of you. If you want to let yourself off the leash more, you are more than welcome to, because this is actually part of your path. And you're capable of doing that. And you have a lot of great things to share with the world, right? And you'll know, like, if that's part of your journey. But I think nevertheless, they want to acknowledge that whatever you've got going on in your internal world, whatever you've got going on in your external world, like, they see you and they acknowledge all parts of you, and they think that you're great. Like, you've got, I think, like, it's kind of like marrying the part of you that is like the dreamer child who imagines and loves art and has fun and like wants to embrace all parts of you, and then like the straight-laced adult who wants to be responsible and be able to care for others and protect yourself, and have a successful life in the physical world, and perhaps be wealthy and perhaps be well set up. And it's like you can have both, right? Ooh, yeah. I'm getting more messages now from my quote cards. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's so interesting how I feel like there's some similar stuff coming through from other groups, and yet also different, where I could see, I mean, this is kind of like with every reading, but I can see how multiple people can resonate with multiple groups, and yet also how they're somewhat different as well. So if it resonates for one person, it might not resonate for another. Okay, so let's see. All right, we got these first, and then we have these under here. Okay, so we've got like black and white on top, and then we've got colors on the bottom. Yeah, okay, so like you definitely have a dual nature. Oh yeah, I wanted to also, with the King of Wisdom here, King of Cups, emotional mastery is important for you. Whether you already feel like you've mastered your emotions, or you're working on that. And emotional mastery is not like emotional suppression, which I feel like for a lot of you have dealt with suppression in your life, whether you still are suppressed in some way, in some area, or you've overcome that. And whether it's been more external or internal, usually it's both, honestly. We learn to suppress from the outside, and then it happens inside. But I do feel like you are, like with the King of Wisdom, King of Cups, you're a master of your emotions, not by suppressing them. But you also might not be, you're not suppressing them. You know how to see them, feel them, recognize them, work with them. But they don't rule you or control you. And for some of you, you have already gained this amount of wisdom and control. Like, this is where you've already gained mastery, and this is recognition of that, and congratulations in that. And for some of you, this might be part of your journey that you're on now, and you're doing great. And that's what they're saying is like, you are this King of Cups. You just need to recognize that more fully in yourself and come to accept that about yourself. And like with Declan, he definitely suppresses a lot of his emotions, and eventually they all come out. And it's a great moment. You know, it's important for him to go through that. He needs that, and then he can, you know, get into being more of himself. And a lot of like the inner imagination and the inner wisdom, comes from emotional wisdom, from allowing yourself to feel your emotions and knowing that you get wisdom from them and valuing them, right? And not suppressing them and recognizing that they've been here for you all along rather than trying to control you. Like, emotions are not your enemy, they're your friend. And for those of you who have really internalized that, like, this is saying great, excellent work. But even if you're still on that journey and you don't feel like you're quite there yet, it's like saying, like, yes, like, you're aware and you're doing it and you're great. And like, you don't have to fear your emotions. If you still feel like you do, it's like totally fine, but you're on the right path. You're doing it. And they want to commend you for that. So we have The Great Storm is Coming, but the Tide has Turned from The Lord of the Rings. This one's been coming out a lot lately too. I feel like I get a few of those every reading, even though I've got like 200 plus cards. So for some of you, the Great Storm might have been like an emotional storm, and for some of you, okay, this is so, it feels very specific, and you may or may not like resonate with this, but for some reason I got this very specific scenario of like, for some of you, you might have been headed towards some kind of emotional breakdown or storm, due to maybe this suppression of emotions, and through one decision or another, or like some kind of epiphany or something that happened, you averted that. You turned the tide on that. You chose a different direction. You chose to start letting yourself express more in some way or another, and that has made all the difference in your story. And that's like something they want to highlight and recognize and be like, hey, like, you did great. Like, you did, yeah, it's amazing, you know, because it's not an easy thing to do, and having some kind of breakdown or having some kind of, you know, whatever is not a shameful thing, and yet it can also, you know, make things a lot harder to begin with, and the sooner we can recognize and divert those things, you know, the faster we move on to the next part of our life. Actually, for some of you with this Eight of Wands here, maybe you did have a quick turnaround. Maybe you were headed in a direction and all of a sudden, like, boom, like you snapped your fingers and like turned about face in the other direction. And like, that was, that was really, really, I don't want to say it's surprising to your spirit guides. I don't know if things really surprised them, but like, it's like it didn't have to go in that way, but you turned it around real quick, and that was really great. And you might still be on this path, but they want you to know that like you really have turned things around. Maybe you've really turned yourself around. Maybe for some of you, it might be subtler. It might be even something that you weren't necessarily aware of was going to be a big thing. For some of you, you know exactly what this is about, and you had a quick turnaround in your life. Something happened, and you just like were like, oh nope, I see you, I got that. I'm not going to do that. That's not where I'm going to go. And you turned your life around. It might have still been really difficult and really hard and like whatever, but they're congratulating you on that, because you've done it successfully, no matter like what it took. So we have this like the black and white and like the seeing things like it's perspective, whatever. Like, obviously I was saying, so there's something to do with like dual sides of your personality, maybe accepting both sides of your personality. I do see that in here. And we remember the good times and the bad ones, forgetting that most times are neither good nor bad. They just are. From The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, so some of you have really done a great work with your perspective. Maybe you've shifted your perspective from a more negative one to a positive one, but also you are someone who has a great capacity to see things as they are, and also see things that from a perspective that is neither good nor bad, but just like what they are. And from there, you can choose to make things mean what they mean. And so perhaps for a lot of you, you're very good at making your own meaning out of things and taking the meaning that feels the most empowering to you and feels like the best option for you. And for some of you, I feel like this was something you had to work at a bit, but you've done a great job at it. And then we also have, I love this one too, Love is not quantifiable and therefore not finite, from Anne with an E. And I love this one because, love is not quantifiable and therefore not finite. It's like that feeling, okay, so the context of when this quote is said is very important, I feel like, for some of you, and I don't know exactly why, but you'll know, obviously. But she's talking to Anne's mother, Marilla, who is a woman who has adopted Anne. Anne is an orphan in Canada. It's like Anne of Green Gables. It's the show based on that, if you're familiar. But she's an orphan who's been adopted by a brother and sister in Canada. I forget exactly where. And it's like the 1800s, like early 1800s or like late 1800s maybe. Yeah, I think it's late 1800s. Yeah, I think so. Because there's trains and stuff. So she and Marilla's having the moment of like, I think it might be like Anne is like looking to find her birth parents, find out more information about them, and just know where she comes from. And Marilla's a little bit nervous about that because she's like, I don't want to lose her. What if she finds, her real family and leaves us for them and whatnot? And Miss Stacy, the school teacher at the time, says, well, fortunately, love is not quantifiable and therefore not finite. So, she might find more people to love, but that doesn't mean she'll stop loving you, right? Love is not something where it's like you can only give love to a limited number of people. While time and space and energy and things like that might seem very limited, love is not. Love is unlimited. For a lot of you, you are learning that now or have learned that. And that's this King of Cups right here, right? This King of Cups, I feel like, is like learning the true meaning of unconditional love, really. Learning how much love is actually a renewable resource and not something limited. And maybe for some of you, you didn't necessarily have that demonstrated to you growing up, or you didn't understand that from a young age, and that's been a big part of your journey. And for those of you for whom that's the case, again, they're highlighting that you have been able to turn your perspective around so naturally, it's so well, even if it didn't feel like that to you, right? That they're very, very proud of that. And for those of you who aren't quite there yet, you are learning this, right? You're learning to embrace the infinite nature of love. For some of you, this could have been demonstrated through something like going through heartbreak and not knowing if you can love again, whether you lost someone, like someone passed away, or like you had a bad breakup or whatever, and it's like, how do I love another person? And it's understanding that the love that you had experienced in the past doesn't need to go anywhere, but that doesn't mean that you don't have more than enough love to give to someone new, right? But other people, like, you can learn this through all kinds of complex situations in your life. The character Miss Stacy in this show, she, I don't think it ever like says this outright, but she probably learned this lesson, this piece of wisdom through, she used to be married to a husband that she loved very much, and he passed on. And while it's clear that she's definitely grieved that in the past, you get the sense that she's someone who has, through that grief, been able to really, embrace who she is and embrace love, and had the show continued, I'm sure she would have, I believe they were setting up that she might have had a new relationship in the future. Like, she's not closed off from that, although she's also not looking for a relationship just to fill the void, because she doesn't feel like she has a void. She feels like she still has that love within her. I think you're finding those reserves of love within you, right? And that's amazing. Oh, yeah, okay, so we got there. Not that I feel like I didn't say a lot of important things along the way to getting there, but I feel like that's one of the big things. It's like you are accessing the reserves of love that you have within you that are yours, and you're learning how to give that to yourself and not outsource that to other people, but to share that with other people and let people share theirs with you, which is fantastic. Great work. So then we have this card. It says, "That's what you are. Argue with anything else, but don't argue with your own nature." Yeah, from His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. Yeah. Okay, so some of you are definitely in conflict with your own nature. Like, you might be all these things and be learning all these things and have learned all these things, but you're having trouble, like, reconciling that. Like, if there's any pile that needs a little bit more encouragement, it's definitely this one so far. I feel like you might be having trouble accepting that, like, yeah, you are this, like, great person who not only is very, like, responsible and, like, as adult-like, I'm getting, like, maybe some of you don't feel like you're an adult, and, like, what an adult is a whole other conversation, but it's like some of you might be having trouble reconciling like your adult and child self. Like you feel like a child, but you also feel like an adult, or like you want to be more mature, but you also feel like you have to like abandon your child self for that. It's kind of like there's parts of you that you need to like just realize are both wonderful and can coexist. They're not at odds. They don't have to be at odds with one another. They're both wonderful, invaluable aspects of you that your spirit guides don't want you to they don't want you to suppress either side. You know what I mean? No more suppression. No more suppression. Yeah. This wasn't meant to be like a super like advice-y one, although advice does come through, but this one does feel like it's like, okay, you're great, you're amazing, and you've got all this stuff inside you that like is wonderful, and now it's time to stop suppressing those parts of you if you feel that you still are in any way, because you're amazing. Like your spirit guides are like, you're great, you're doing great. So we teach best what we most need to learn. Illusions by Richard Bach. Ooh, okay. Yeah, there's like, yeah. Okay, so for some of you, perhaps your gold, your wisdom is stuff that you've learned along your journey to self-acceptance or whatever journey you've been on so far. And part of you accepting that and expressing that is teaching, right? And so if you've been considering that, or maybe that sounds appealing to you somewhere down the line, your spirit guides are saying, yes, that's totally part of your path and you can totally do that. And if you are doing that already, you are doing great. But for others of you, it's about looking at that which you recognize in yourself as your strengths and tracing back like how they became your strengths. What has your path been like? Because that might help you reconcile parts of yourself that you still feel like are immature or are just not quite there yet or where you want to be. That might help you reconcile the path that you need to take to get where you want to be, because it's like you've already done that and now you can transfer that experience to your, whatever you're working on now. And also to see that like we teach best what we most need to learn. Like for some of you, it's like that which you see in other people is also within you. So like that which you can point out in someone else and be like, oh, they need to do that. That would help them. It's like, that because of your own experience, right? And also vice versa. If someone else can teach you, it's things that they're teaching you because they've learned it. They've had to learn it as well. Some of you might feel a little insecure about like, or threatened by someone else's knowledge, and there's no need to, because you are just as, some of you need to understand that you are just as capable of teaching as you are of learning, that both are part of the same process, that anything that you feel a little threatened by, maybe like in the sense of like not wanting to admit that you don't know something, it's like, no. That is just part of the process. But you are also someone who has great wisdom within you to share. Yeah. And it's worth sharing that, because just because you have things that you can learn from other people doesn't mean that they don't also have things to learn from you. I don't know exactly what that's about for some of you, but you will. And you need to know that, like, sometimes I feel like some of you feel like you don't have things figured out and you don't know what you're doing when you actually do. And some of you, I feel like you put too much pressure on yourself for not understanding things sooner, when really the process of understanding was what was important. And so it's not that you didn't know it before. Like, that's not the point. The point is that you went through the process and you know it now, and that's what gives you the wisdom. That's what gives you the gold you can then share with other people. And that's actually really an important part of you. The whole process was an important part of you, that your spirit guides want you to recognize, because they are like, that's great. It's exactly what you're supposed to do, You're doing it right, Whatever you're doing it right. We have this as well. Life and love generate effort, but effort will not generate them. Okay. So I was really drawn to this like person holding up their heart, and it's resonating out. So for a lot of you, if you've been holding yourself back, if you've been repressing yourself out of fear that you're okay. For some of you, because with Declan was hiding himself because he was protecting himself, but he was also protecting his brothers, because he felt like if he was too flashy and out there, like his dad was in some way, it's like complicated, but like that he's going to draw attention to his family because like there's a whole lot of stuff going on and people might be hunting them down and whatnot. Like there is very real danger. So he's trying not to draw attention to himself or his family because he wants to keep what remains of his family together. And that's the only way he knows how to do it. So he's suppressing himself because he feels like if he shares himself, if he puts himself out there too much, he could hurt someone else. Some of you, we're getting to it now, some of you have that fear as well. You fear that sharing yourself in some way could hurt other people. Now, I don't know what that's about for you individually, but if that resonates with you, your spirit guides are assuring you that it's that's not, look, use your own discernment, but you've got things inside you that you need to share because they will actually do the opposite. Like they will help people. They will not hurt. Sharing more of yourself, sharing more of your emotions is not going to be hurtful to other people. People want to experience that connection with you, right? The more that you connect with other people emotionally, the more that they feel connected to you, the more that you feel connected to them. That's not a bad thing. Not at all. If there are elements of you that you want to share, but you're afraid will hurt other people because, like, say it's a situation like, your family might not understand, like, your, well, it's still Pride Month, so we'll use the example of, like, hello, fellow LGBTQs out there, if that's you, but if that's not, this is, just one example, but if you're, like, in the LGBTQ community and, like, say your family, you feel like will be hurt by you being yourself, because there's shame around that in the family. There's maybe they don't understand. What if, they had one picture for my life and now they get another one. Whatever it is, it's not like, okay, just put yourself out there even if you would be in danger, like your family would, hurt you or something like that. Like, it's not that, but it's like, you'll know if you're in a situation where you're in physical danger. And it's not saying that you should just, you should use your own discernment, obviously. But if you're in a situation where you can be safe, where you really want to be who you are, being more of who you are can only help other people because, okay, I want to make this clear. You're not martyring yourself for anyone else, but what you're doing is you're taking the steps to be yourself because that's what you truly want, and letting other people have their feelings about it, that they will. But recognizing that sometimes if people are hurt by, like, who you really are, like, you're, who you want to love, who you really, like, that's their problem. And it might actually be more helpful than hurtful for them to actually go through the process of learning to accept that. But regardless of whether it's, that's their journey or not, it's also, like, helpful for you. And that's something that in and of itself, when you have that courage and you can be that person, and shine that light for other people in the world, that's helpful to them, even if it's, not your family directly. Like, it's a complex situation, and I could see how so many people could be in, like, a similar situation and make different choices because of all the minutia and specifics of your situation. But I hope you understand what I'm saying, that, like, underneath it, you're making the decision that's most empowering for you, which can help empower other people. And when you stand up and claim who you are, even those who are not ready to accept it, that can be an important experience for them, whether they take that opportunity or not. It's not up to you, but at the same time, that can be really beneficial for them. And hiding yourself at the end of the day it's not like, it might not make waves, and for a time in your life, that's fine, because, like for Declan, he needed to protect himself. There's no problem with him suppressing himself for a while, even though it definitely started to kill him inside. But once you get to that point and you can't suppress it anymore, like, you gotta, if you can let it out before then, it gets to that point, that's great. But if you can't, and you do get to that point, like, you gotta let it out, and you've gotta face the consequences of that. And you might be surprised. The consequences of that might not outweigh the gains that you make. And I think your spirit guides are saying, like, definitely, you have a lot to share, and you don't have to jump into anything. You can wade into the waters, you can take your time, but at the same time, as you're doing that, know that you're moving in the right direction and that what you have within you is not harmful or hurtful. No matter how people respond, like you're not hurting people. If you were hurting people, like with the intention to hurt people, then you know that you're hurting people, right? Like, right? But if you're putting your best foot forward, if you're just embracing who you are and being honest about your feelings, about yourself, you're not hurting people, right? And like you'll know in your situation if this is speaking true, because I think for some of you, like, not wanting to hurt other people while it might come from a really good place is also another excuse that you might use to keep yourself protected in a way that you don't need to protect yourself anymore. And if you're not in a situation where you need to protect yourself like you used to anymore, you'll know, because you'll be like banging on those doors to get out, right? So yeah, this is a bit more of an advice group than I thought it would be, but I think it's really, like, when it comes down to it, my intention was to have your spirit guides brag about you. And I think the way that they're bragging about you is they're saying, look at how amazing my human is. Look at how amazing this person is. Can you believe they don't share themselves more with the world? And while some of you might be like, oh my God, I've heard that from like my parents, or I've heard that from other people in my life, it's really annoying. They're definitely coming at it from a place of love and from a place of saying, like, look, there's no pressure. It's more like what path you're already on. And some of you, like I said, might have already gone through this, but others of you are still going through it. And it's like just reminding you that you are all that in a bag of chips, and you don't have to do anything because like anyone's telling you to. You'll know in your heart if that's what you really want, if you really want to share yourself more. And you don't have to jump in to the deep end. You don't have to jump off a cliff, although if you like really just want to dive in and you're ready to do that, go for it. But like, you can also just wade into the water, take your time, learn, practice actively putting more parts of yourself out there, and be, discerning about when and how you do it. You don't have to do it all at once. I think some of you might need to do that, but some of you, like I said, there is something in a lot of you that might be more reserved by nature, and that might be fine and normal. It's like finding your balance, right? Finding your perfect balance, letting more of yourself out that wasn't out before, accepting parts of you haven't accepted before, and yet at the same time allowing you to be you, not forcing yourself to be someone who you're not. And then again, of course, if the pendulum swings the other way and you're still finding your balance, that's okay too. Some of you need to let yourselves off some kind of hook. I don't know. But your spirit guides are like, look at this amazing human. I want everyone to know. I want to shout it from the rooftops. and yeah, so you might just need to be open to sharing your amazingness now with more people and embracing your amazingness, even just to yourself. So I just want to get a few more things. I just have these Rumi cards, so I'm just going to get some of those quotes. Spirit team for group 3. What else do you want to say? Okay. So we have... Oh, this one came out for the other group. I think the middle group. From the limits of the soil to the human being, there are thousands of levels. I have taken you from place to place, never to leave you along the way. Yeah. So your spirit guides are saying, like, wherever you are on this journey and wherever you have been, they've always been with you. Also, parts of yourself that you might have trouble accepting have also been with you and always been with you along the way. If some of you are coming out of a phase of being super protective over yourself and you feel like you've been a little overprotective of yourself, this is also a reminder of like, that's a part of you too that has been with you and been working with you. And while you might be ready to let it go to an extent, you might be ready to shed some armor and stuff, you don't have to beat yourself up or disown that part of you either. That's been with you for a reason. It's protected you for a reason. It's just you're moving into a new phase. And your spirit team is also just saying, like, they've been with you all along. If you're moving into a new phase of your life and self-expression that you're nervous about and you don't know how other people will accept you, they will. Like, if nobody else got you back, they've got you back. But also, you might be surprised about other people. But also, like, yeah, they're with you. They've been with you in every phase. They will continue to be with you. Unconditional love, unconditional love. I think a lot of you are really learning about unconditional love for yourself, for other people, how to tap into that, how to be that, whether you feel like you embody it or not yet, or like how to. Like, we all, it's not like we all feel like kumbaya and rainbows all the time, most of us anyway, have moments where we do and moments where we don't. And I think you're learning how to tap into that more often. All your failures are due to greed for success. Wow, this is like the same. This one also came out in group 2. Okay. Which is interesting because I felt like these are very different vibes, but all right. All your failures are due to greed for success. Surrender ambition and witness victory flowing your way. Yeah, okay. So, yes, okay. Kind of the same thing that came through for pile 2, kind of like it's coming through in a different way. You might be very hard on yourself, which might be why you have trouble sharing your amazingness with other people, but you are amazing. You might have either already done this or are working on doing this, transmuting your perspective on success or failure. Like if you put pressure on yourself to be seen in a certain way, behave in a certain way, and then you don't meet that expectation you set for yourself, you feel like a failure. But you might actually have to take a look at the expectations you've been setting for yourself. And some of you have already done this and you're doing great. Some of you are still working on this, but it's like, check the things you're using to measure your success or failure. Like check the standards you're setting for yourself. Are those actually standards you want to be meeting anymore? Some of you, if you feel like you have a more go with the flow internal life, but you're like trying to be more responsible or like rigid or whatever, and you feel like you're not quite like those parts of you that seem to be disparate, aren't working together because one part is trying to set standards that the other part can't follow, because they're both parts of you that need to be expressed. And you need to help them work together and understand one another so that they can work together rather than trying to beat one into submission. Yes, okay, this is all about recognizing the amazingness of all parts of you. So again, spirit guides are bragging about you, but they're also kind of like saying like, you gotta embrace this in yourself, right? Like this is something in yourself that's you're already great, and some of you are having trouble integrating two parts of yourself that you feel like are too at odds with each other, and yet there's a way that they can work together and that they can come to an understanding within you, and you can become fully integrated in yourself and fully supportive of yourself. And those of you who have already made great strides on that, and you're like, congrats. And those of you who are still working on that, you're doing great. Like, but there's something here about letting yourself be who you are in all facets, and recognizing what your spirit guides already see, which is that you're already amazing, and those parts of you aren't wrong. Neither one is wrong. They're just two parts of you that need to work together instead of against each other. And then we have, my place is the placeless. My trace is the traceless. I am neither of body nor of soul, for I am the soul of the beloved. So, and this is like right with the ones that are about love. I think this is about the unconditional love that you're learning to embrace for yourself and for others and the universe. And letting go of your attachments to like your idea of who you are, and things like mindfulness, meditation are just about not being so identified with your mind, with the thoughts in your mind, with your likes and dislikes or anything like that, but yet just being and just acknowledging the parts of you that are bigger than all of that, right? And then when you come back into yourself as you are in this incarnation, you can witness your life in a less judgmental manner and be more in awe of like your existence and how things all come together to form you. And it's like not forsaking any parts of you or suppressing them, but in loving the holistic picture, the big picture of you, the big picture of existence, and feeling rather than thinking or seeing, feeling your place in that without need to put any even like words or labels on it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And then we have, you are like the cypress in the meadow. I am your devoted shadow. I am sheltered in your shade under a canopy of roses. Ooh, okay. So I feel like this is important actually because it's like there's a part, it's like bringing the two parts of you together. One part of you is the sheltering tree that protects and shades but does not cage. And the other part of you is taking shelter there, is protected there, and feels safe enough to then exist and be yourself. Yeah, so there's a part of you that, like that protective part of you, rather than being overbearing or over-controlling, can be a protector and a shelter for the more vulnerable parts of you that need to feel safe enough to be shared and to be loved and accepted within you and within the world around you. And you have the capacity to do that within yourself. Yes. And so you have either learned how to do that, or are learning how to do that, or are just about to step onto that journey. And that's amazing. And it's about self-acceptance. It's like all of this is like your spirit guides being like, you are wonderful just the way you are. And the parts of you that are different from each other are also equally important and wonderful, and are both worthy of love and attention and care. And you are encouraged to cultivate that if you haven't already. And yeah. We got 2 kings here as well. I feel like you are this king. You're this king of strength, this king of wands with fire, and you're also this king of wisdom, the king of cups with water, right? You've got it all. It's like you don't need to suppress any of it. It's all there. Okay. So I hope that was helpful in some way. I hope that resonated, and you're doing great, sweetie. So I hope you embrace your full self, because it is magnificent, and your spirit guides want you to know that. But for now, that's all I got. So yeah, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you're interested, my mom and I do tarot readings and tarot guidance sessions on our website, and we also offer hypnosis, and my mom does human design. So if you're interested in that, we have a link in the description. We might be adding more options for tarot readings, like for shorter ones and things like that soon, so keep an eye out for that. And regardless, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in another reading sometime soon. Bye.